Hello and welcome to Labyrinth of the Bizarre, a podcast where we discuss, review, and analyze speculative fiction such as horror, apocalyptic, dark fantasy, and other subgenres. My name is Rea, and I use she/her pronouns.
My name is Elia, and I use they/them pronouns.
For this episode, we'll briefly talk about the history of the Snyder Cut movement. Since the movie is 4 hours long, we'll only focus on specific parts of the movie. Fueled by his restored faith in humanity and inspired by Superman's selfless act, Bruce Wayne enlists newfound ally Diana Prince to face an even greater threat. Together, Batman and Wonder Woman work quickly to recruit a team to stand against this newly awakened enemy. Despite the formation of an unprecedented League of Heroes, it may be too late to save the planet from an assault of catastrophic proportions. Behind the scenes rep and stuff. So, Ray Fisher, who plays the cyborg, and Joe Morton, who plays his father, Silas, are Black Americans. Jason Momoa is Native Hawaiian and Samoan, and Ezra Miller is non-binary. Trigger warning, there's canon-typical violence, there's parental death, and there's a lot of flashing lights.
Ezra Miller co-directed a short 5-minute video soon after the death of Michael Brown. The video focused on Darren Wilson, and the point of the video was to show the audience how people like Darren Wilson are liars and manipulators that will attempt to paint themselves as a good guy. Despite good intentions, it was obviously a very misguided video, one that the Black community was very upset about, because even though you are trying to show that Darren Wilson is a bad person, you are still giving him a platform through this video. And that video has since been removed from YouTube, so I don't really know where you can even watch it now. But it's up to you to look into that and make your own opinion on it.
Ezra uses they/them pronouns.
But I thought they said they used all, but I...
Oh, okay. Yeah, them. Oh, wait, no, he did say
all pronouns?
that it's comfortable with all pronouns.
Okay. So this is a supercut of the Snyder Cut history. I will try to go as quickly as possible. Autumn Snyder was adopted from China when she was about a year old. Out of the 8 Snyder kids, she was the only one interested in aliens and superheroes, and film and writing the way Zack Snyder was. Autumn Snyder was 20 years old when she took her life in 2017. At the time, Zack and Debbie Snyder were still in the process of filming Justice League. CEO Kevin Tsujihara assigned executives John Berg and Jeff Johns to assist Zack during this hard time. Jeff Johns and John Berg were essentially babysitters. At least one of them was on set at all times, hovering over Zack. He says that they would suggest changes, but Zack ultimately didn't want to go through with them because it didn't fit with the movie, and the CEO was unhappy with the version that Zack was creating. And then, Joss Whedon came into the picture. Back in 2017, the press release was that Zack Snyder personally chose Joss Whedon for help. But that is not true. At the time, Jeff Johns and Joss Whedon were developing a Batgirl film, and Jeff Johns brought Joss to Justice League to help with the rewrites, getting another director on board to take the load off of Zack Snyder while he's grieving. After a while, Whedon was given more authority on the movie and essentially became an unofficial director. The pushback and negativity the Snyders experienced added unnecessary stress that felt so minuscule during a family tragedy. So, Zack and Debbie Snyder left to be with their family. And despite not seeing eye to eye with Whedon, Johns, and the executives, the movie was almost finished filming, so the Snyders thought they would be able to complete it without them easily. The press release said that the reshoots lasted about 7 weeks. It also said that the reshoots cost $25 million. In my opinion, I believe that it cost more than $25 million, considering the fact that they only used 10% of Zack Snyder's version in Joss Whedon's film. I also think that they lied about the cost to hide the consequences and responsibility of allowing Joss Whedon to waste millions of dollars. In a Vanity Fair article, an executive who remained anonymous admitted that the executives thought Whedon's version was terrible, but they couldn't do anything about it at that point because of the amount of money and time already wasted. And the Snyders weren't the only one experiencing a toxic environment. A lot of the cast and crew have spoken on this, but the most vocal one has been Ray Fisher, who plays Cyborg. Ray Fisher was subjected to so much anti-Black harassment. They threatened his career, they mocked him, they thought his character was an angry Black man, and they didn't want that to be the center of the movie. So they made changes you see in Joss Whedon's Justice League. They changed his character in ways that Ray Fisher did not think represented Black people and contributed to Black stereotypes. Ray Fisher had to fight to remove ableist changes they made for the movie. They reshot scenes because they canonically wanted Cyborg to have a penis. Shit like that.
Oh my fucking god.
I know, right?
What the fuck?
The microaggressions is just so weird and terrible, and when I read his interviews, I'm just so fucking disgusted. Please do take the time to read the interviews with Ray Fisher that I've linked in the show notes and support him and the hashtag #IStandWithRayFisher movement. He has a legal case against these people, and currently he's lost, but he and the supporters for this movement are going to continue fighting. Again, a lot of the cast and crew have spoken formally through interviews or informally on Twitter about their experience with Warner Brothers, not just with Zack Snyder films, but for all the DCEU films. The cast and crew were the laughingstock for years. Chris Terrio is the only one who has directly spoken about how after working on these films, it affected his career and how his peers treated him, and I imagine the same could be said for everyone else. Zack Snyder has always been shit on by journalists, but after being the scapegoat for Whedon's Justice League, I've seen some really, really terrible things said about him. Journalists accuse him of pedophilic behavior, sexual harassment, being an alt-right neo-Nazi, and some really, really bad shit about him being involved with the death of his daughter. And this hive mind of hatred and accusations have fed into so much harassment towards Zack Snyder from all different types of people.
What the fuck? I'm just like, what? How can you blame him for oh my god. Oh my god.
The thing about his daughter was said during the Stop Asian Hate movement.
No way.
It was really bad, and yeah, people really think that Zack Snyder caters to neo-Nazis and that he fuels them. Like, even after the release of this movie, they thought this movie enforced rape culture, which...
Wait, what? What part?
The way the women are dressed and the way women are treated and the Flash and Iris scene.
What?
I don't know. There's no justification towards these accusations, and I really wish that this energy would be targeted towards actual people in Hollywood that are accused of this type of behavior instead of someone who doesn't have any sort of allegations. Anyways, studio meddling and harassment is not new to Hollywood, but the fan base wanted justice and dedicated 4 years to do it. During those 4 years, the Snyder Cut movement raised more than $500,000 to donate to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Honestly, at this point in time, I'm pretty sure it's closer to $1 million. Zack Snyder's Justice League is historical because this is not a director's cut of a movie, but an entirely different version from what was released in 2017. But most importantly, the release of Zack Snyder's Justice League serves as a form of catharsis and justice to the cast and crew. Director Aaron Stewart Ahn said this about the Snyder Cut, and honestly, it's just so well phrased that I'm just going to directly quote it. Good or bad, how can you not be fascinated by the Snyder Cut? It's somehow out in the open for you to judge how a movie studio will lie, take advantage of a family tragedy, gaslight, slander, and erase a black actor, and underestimate the audience's intelligence and complexity with your own eyes. Seriously, it's unprecedented and almost depressing to sit at home in one sitting and see for yourself how editing and reshoots completely alter a movie and wonder how much you've seen is a result of so much corporate cowardice.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I like that.
I know.
I really like that.
That's why I just quoted it, because it was really well written. But that's all I'm going to say about the history of the Snyder Cut. There is a really, really long list of links in our show notes, and you should definitely read the interviews with Zack Snyder and Ray Fisher. I've had like 30 tabs open on my phone and so many bookmarks on my laptop. It's actually fucking ridiculous. And we won't be spending time talking about the differences between the Whedon film and Zack Snyder's Justice League because I just don't think it's productive. I want to celebrate Zack Snyder, Deborah Snyder, Chris Terrio, Ray Fisher, and everyone who worked on this film who experienced redemption and relief from this movie being released. That being said, let's jump into it.
Okay, so when I first watched this film, it was with my brother and his family, and we had been preparing for this moment for so long, and we made like a little like bed on the ground, and we had a projector on the wall, and it was like just like a really cool. We were so excited, especially since the last DC film we had seen was Wonder Woman, and we had also done this little routine of getting together and like getting excited to watch and being disappointed. So we were like, this one's gonna be good. This one's gonna be 4 hours long, but it's gonna be good. Like, it was so exciting. And I remember finishing watching this movie and looking over at my nieces who looked like so impressed, and I was like, me too, I'm so impressed too. And like, it was just so cool. And then normally I struggle with really long movies to just keep my attention on anything. But honestly, I was just like, I've been waiting so long for this movie that I have to pay attention. And I was like so hyper focused on everything. I was like, I'm going to appreciate this so much. Because it took so long to be able to be like, for us to be able to watch it. And that the quote you just shared makes sense. I was like, even if the movie had ended up not being that great, but it is great. I love it. But even if it hadn't been great, it was still so cool at the fact, like, it took so many people, like, it took audiences, it took cast members, it took writers, it took, like, a whole legion of people for us to be able to see this film.
Yeah, I remember when Zack announced that they were going to release it on HBO Max, people were going to be like, but what if it sucks? But the movie being good is not the point. The justice and redemption is the point of releasing the Snyder Cut. And I feel like people miss that sometimes.
Justice League was brought to justice.
Right? It's in the name. Watching this movie was like coming home in a way. It was so surreal because I had watched Whedon's version, so I kind of know the overall plot. And I've also kept up with Zack Snyder, because he would post storyboards and pictures from his laptop from the original version, because at the time he never thought that this would happen. So he would just sort of release these spoilers to the world so that the fans would know what his plan was for the franchise. And so I knew every detail, and it was like I was rewatching a movie, but a movie that I hadn't watched. It was so weird, but I really loved it, and I had the pleasure of watching it with the speakers blasted in the living room. I told my housemates, like, hey, I need 4 hours in the living room. Please do not disturb me. But it was great. It made me really happy. And then I watched it again in that same day. I spent like 8 hours watching that fucking movie.
You watched that movie multiple times that week. I remember. I
did. It's really bad. I'm really glad that this isn't a movie that I have picked up the habit of watching monthly, because I think that'd be terrible.
4 hours.
I would hate myself.
You probably wouldn't hate yourself. You would probably enjoy it.
I mean, like, I already watched BVS monthly. That's like 3 hours, so it's just another hour. So Rea, let's talk about Aquaman, a character who was severely underdeveloped in the Whedon Cut. Oh wait, you actually didn't watch that one.
I didn't watch that one, so I have no point of comparison. I can't even make a comparison, which is a very nice blessing to have. This is the only way I know him. So, like, I did know him from his movie, which was ass. But, like, yeah.
Okay.
But I really like this Aquaman. Even the editing of how they make him look, like, he just looks like 10 times cooler. But from what I remember in the Aquaman film, he does not look the same. I don't know what it is. His position as, like, the comedic side character is now overdone, so he doesn't feel like he's the laughingstock of the Justice League. I really like his, like, salty jokes.
When he, like, waves to Steppenwolf during that one
fight,
that was so funny. Or when he there's a part where he's, like, totally fucking with Steppenwolf, and he's, like, twirling his trident for, like, no fucking reason before he hits Steppenwolf. It's so great. Like, I love that.
Yeah, that works for him. I think that type of dry humor works for him a lot. And I feel like Aquaman, they try too hard. And I'm like,
Rea,
no.
I need to stop you right here. This is not an Aquaman review.
Sorry, I know. But okay.
This is not an Aquaman review, so I literally have to keep quiet.
Yes.
I can't even talk back to you.
Okay.
Aquaman is really brief in this movie, but I think it provided the stepping stones to his solo film, and I really think it's a great introduction to him, and I love this addition in this movie of how he's kind of like an urban legend to many small fishing villages. I really thought that was interesting and cool.
I really like this introduction for him. I wish I had not seen the movie, and I wish this is what I saw.
Oh,
because he's just so badass. I'm sorry. He's just so badass. I think he looks really cool.
I also really love, it's very brief, but they brought up like family dynamics and Arthur's bispecies struggle as like the main point of Arthur in this movie. Even though it wasn't a lot, obviously, that's more explored in his solo film, it's a good introduction for the audience.
You could see the struggle he has with his bi-species identity, especially because, like, his character development in the film is focused on, like, he starts thinking, like, strongest man is strongest alone type thing. And he learned how to, like, be a part of something, be a part of a team, be a part of the world.
I think it also stems, you know, like the biracial struggle. There's no strong positive connection with his Atlantean identity or the people because he's treated differently, and yet very specific people demand that he be there for Atlanteans and do his part as king, which is fucked, and he doesn't really feel that he's obligated to fill this role because these people have never done anything for him, and his reaction to that is to hold resentment towards Atlantis and the expectations people have for him. It's so brief, but like the complexity it shows in his scenes in Atlantis, you know, it gets the point across really well.
Yeah, because like with the Flash too, he's a very minor role, but we also get like his little mini story arc in the film too.
I really love Barry's arc in this movie. I love his scenes with his dad. I feel like it's just so full of heart and emotion that I don't really see in a lot of comic book movies in a way. I just think it's really amazing that in just 2 scenes, the audience understands the gravity of their situation and their relationship. We understand that his father is what drives Barry's motives in his life off screen and on screen. And it also gave like the opportunity to have a really hard conversation about someone who is incarcerated and someone who has lost themselves to their dedication to getting them out.
Yeah, because even though like the Flash was like, he's introduced like a very quirky character, like he's saving the dog. But then like immediately after almost, we get like a really deep understanding of his character and why he is the way that he is and why he's so... like, he desires justice.
So there's this really, really cool thing that I want to share, and it's Flash's, like, original symbol design, or at least they were going to reference him coming up with his design. And so in the film, Flash refers to Superman as his hero. And in 2017, there was a Flash exhibit that had drawings of, like, the Flash symbol with Barry brainstorming what his symbol would look like. And the current Flash symbol is like 2 zigzags for the lightning, but one of the drawings had 1 zigzag to imitate an S, like Superman.
No! Sorry, that's so cute.
I think it's really cool. It's just like such, you know, it's a nice touch within the canon of this series. I appreciate how Superman has directly and indirectly influenced so many heroes in the DCEU. Obviously the Flash, Batman, and Shazam, which you haven't seen yet. But I also think it's good to have individuality, so I'm glad they didn't go with that route. But I just think it's like cool little Easter egg. There's another Easter egg in the scene where Batman and the Flash meet up and drive off in his fancy car for their fucking car ad. When they drive off, there's like a ad on the freeway, and it's a American Foundation for Suicide Prevention ad, and it says, "You are not alone."
Oh yeah, I remember seeing that. And I remember thinking as I watched the film, like how the previous scene had Cyborg all alone in the apartment, even though like his dad was there. Like he's alone all the time, just guarding the mother box.
And he's also alone emotionally.
And he's alone because there's nobody like him. And I think he might be feeling less than human. The Cyborg immediately, like, a line from him where he's telling his father, like, you know a lot about monsters, insinuating the fact that his father created him and turned him into a monster.
He is unable to cope with his life
The loss of his youth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Loss of his body.
The loss of his mother. Everything happened so fast. And he ended up being turned into something by the parent he was already having a difficult relationship with. It shows like the initial conflict that arises between Cyborg and Silas. And I think it's really cool that it begins before he's Cyborg. Like, it starts when they're human and it's just a parent-child conflict. And that it spirals into more. And I'm like, I like it because the origin isn't Cyborg. This conflict is not randomly brought in.
He's a hard time coping and grieving because he doesn't really have a support system. Like, he doesn't want support from his father, but he also can't reach out to anyone else because he thinks of himself as a monster. There's like internal ableism going through him, and also he doesn't believe that he will be accepted by people he trusted before, so he can't really go to anyone.
I think it's interesting that majority of the movie, he's wearing a sweater that's like just a football jersey he probably got from his high school, but it says like property of Gotham City. And I was like, oh, interesting, because he views himself as an object right now. Like, the fact that that's on his sweater is interesting.
I did not notice that. Going back to grief, I really love how so much of this movie reflects the journey of Zack Snyder and the cast and crew. Martha, Lois, Cyborg, and Silas, they all go through different experiences with grief, and that directly reflects the Snyders and their family tragedy and being able to put this movie out finally.
You know what? I had been so focused on Cyborg's grief that I didn't realize that there was like more instances of grief. Even though it's obvious, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, everyone's grieving in this movie.
Whenever I thought about grief, I always thought about Cyborg. I do like the fact that they start a friendship between the Flash and Cyborg because they're both pretty young, and it allows Cyborg to have like a bit of that lost youth, because if the Flash wasn't there, it would just be like a bunch of older people in the Justice League. So I'm like, yeah,
a bunch of fucking boomers. And
then in the scene where the dad is like narrating things through the tape and it starts showing like the extent of his power and the extent of everything, I remember seeing that scene and thinking like, man, this boy is like almost like as powerful as Superman. Like, obviously like not quite to the same level, but I'm like,
yeah, in a different extent.
Yeah, in a different extent. I literally thought like this is another form of godhood. And then we see how he has a power that Superman doesn't, which is like finances, like accounting, I guess. And understand.
Accounting. Yes, accounting, a very difficult subject that humans have failed over and over again to try to understand. Only the elite can understand accounting. He definitely has godlike powers in the sense that he has control over systems that literally run our society. Our weapons, surveillance, money, like this is what our society is built on. And the most obvious example for this godlike power is the money scene with the single parent.
Yeah. That made me so sad.
I really love that scene.
I just wanted to mention that when I was watching that scene, I thought it was interesting that he picked a single mother, especially since he had just experienced the loss of his. So he was probably like thinking like, this is the woman I want to help. Out of all the people who are struggling, like this single mother who's trying the best for her child. And it probably brought a lot of emotion in him because he knows that his mom always tried with him.
And I really love that this scene serves as like heroes going against the system. You know what I mean? Like the system of oppression, and how that isn't viewed negatively or has like, I don't know, it's not treated as a bad thing. So, I mean, Vic, even before he became Cyborg, he hacked into his university's system and changed Sarah's grades. And then in this case, he was also hacking into a bank and giving money to someone who really needed it. And the way they portray it in the movie is just like, even though it's wrong in our society, it's the right thing to do.
Also, I love that inclusion of the scene where he helped his friend with her grades.
Oh my god, I love that.
Because it's just like, it's just another one of those instances where it shows like he was a great person already, and like just being Cyborg is gonna allow him to do so much more. Like, not saying like he should be thankful that it happened, but like this is an opportunity that he might have not had before to help people. I just like, he's a good person.
Yeah, I really don't like stories that paint heroes as like they find their motivations after.
Yeah, like, no.
And not necessarily comic book heroes. I just mean hero in the generic sense for movies. Those morals and that drive has to be part of them like forever. that doesn't just magically appear during the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, I agree, because a lot of just heroes in general, as you said, like, it takes like the starting instance in the story, like the instigating point, the moment that everything changed for them to head towards the heroic path, instead of being like, they always had signs of being like this really heroic person, but this moment was what made it like develop further.
Yes, yeah. So C. Amanda Maud is a Chinese-American actor, and she is the one who plays a single mother. She was super upset that Joss Whedon cut it out of the movie because it was obviously very emotional and very powerful. She was happy to be put in the film and to get credit for her work. That being said, there's some racist shit about this that I need to talk about. So Jeff Johns is a person that I mentioned before, and Jeff Johns is a comic book writer, screenwriter, TV and film producer for DC Comics, as well as like, you know, an executive, whatever the fuck. Jeff Johns cut this scene, took it for himself, pretended it was his, and then utilized the exact same scene with another cyborg for the TV show Doom Patrol. During an IG Live, Ray Fisher said that Jeff Johns was, quote, using back-channel communications to gloat that there would be another cyborg being used in the DC universe in a show that he was producing. And that is Cyborg in Doom Patrol, played by Jovian Wade. And there's no hurt feelings between Jovian and Ray. They support each other and their characterization of Cyborg. Booyah was utilized in Doom Patrol, and the scene is directly a slap to Ray Fisher. The cyborg in Doom Patrol is asked by a fan to say booyah, and Cyborg is annoyed and asks his AI, "Have I ever said booyah?" And it responds, "Yes, you've used it 31 times. It's a catchphrase."
Oh my god. That's why that scene is in it?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Fuck off.
Booyah is not comic book accurate. It was not a thing until the Teen Titans show on Cartoon Network, and even in comics now, he doesn't say it. And in the rare times that he has, it was very stilted and for fan service. And what I'm gonna say next is going to upset some people because nostalgia, but the cartoon Teen Titans has caused huge, long-lasting negative impacts on the characters, like perpetuating racism, whitewashing, and degrading their characters. I understand portrayals that stray from comic book accuracy, but you cannot erase core qualities of a person and erase representation because that makes them unrecognizable and at that point is an original character. And I personally cannot forgive the show for the irreversible damage it's done. People who consume this look at the show as the definite portrayal of the characters, and some of those people have become writers and artists for DC shows, comics, novels, etc. And it continues this cycle of terrible, racist, degrading iterations and encourages engaging with people of color, and in this case, Black people, in an extremely racist way. For example, how they treated Ray Fisher with his iteration of Cyborg.
Wow. I didn't know he was just lifting scenes from Snyder. The fuck?
You know what? Fuck it. I'm just okay. I don't know where to say this, but I'm just gonna say it here because this character is introduced through Silas, which is technically like Cyborg's arc, but Ryan Choi, which is one of the other scientists in the lab, he is another superhero called Atom, and Zack Snyder had been pitching Warner Brothers to do an Atom movie with him in China, with a Chinese cast for a superhero film, but Warner Brothers did not want that. Maybe they just didn't want an Asian cast. I don't know, but that was a thing that Zack wanted to do, and that was shot down by Warner Brothers. I forgot to mention this earlier when we were talking about grief, but there's a scene where Cyborg is in a cemetery and hides the mother box in his grave, but like the shot is of him digging up his own grave, and it's so chilling to see that, and it makes me think of how Vic is confronting his grief and mourning over a body and a life that he lost.
Going off of what you said about family dynamics and redemption, which is like big in Cyborg, you know who else had those same themes? Steppenwolf. Steppenwolf of all people.
I thought it was really funny when, like, there's a part where Steppenwolf has, like, pleading puppy eyes when he's talking to Desaad, and I was like, oh my god, what is happening right now?
When I saw that, you know what was the first thing I thought? It's the pleading eyes Smeagol does in Lord of the Rings.
Ew.
And I don't know if you saw that far, but for the people listening who've seen Lord of the Rings, there's like these little puppy dog eyes that Smeagol does when he wants his precious. He's like, my precious. He looks exactly like Steppenwolf.
But you know what's different about Smeagol and Steppenwolf?
What?
Steppenwolf's thick.
Shut up.
I had to say it.
Don't.
I mean, have you looked at him?
Don't. Oh my god, please stop. No.
And I mean, like, I really love that was his motivation, because I am the right-hand man for this fucking conqueror is sort of...
Tired.
Yeah, it's definitely overused. It's not very interesting or convincing. So, being a right-hand man seeking acceptance back into his family just seems a lot stronger and interesting from a villain.
Just overall, this movie does really well by giving characters that are not the main focus their own character arc and character reasoning and everything like that.
Yeah, definitely. It's a very solid motivation, and it's explicitly stated in such a short amount of time as well.
It doesn't even go into depth, does it? Like, it's just like, yes, you betrayed them and you have to work for it, and you basically have to work forever. And it's just like, wow, how big was your betrayal and how far are you willing to work? And you could see that Steppenwolf is really willing to work for and capture all those planets to get back.
The things you will do for family. Oh my god, did I just quote Game of Thrones?
Gas! But that's a different familial situation. I just remembered who said it.
And on top of a better character arc and motivation, he is actually terrifying in this movie, which wasn't true for the 2017 version.
I didn't find him scary.
You didn't find him scary?
No.
You're joking. Like, he's actually a threat. Like, the stakes are real against him.
Oh, like being okay, the stakes are real. Oh, I thought like physically.
No, I mean, he looks fuckable. It's not that scary.
Stop. Stop. No, he doesn't. He does not.
I mean, if I ever interacted with Steppenwolf,
stop.
The armor
don't
stays
even
on.
say it. Don't.
The armor stays
Shut
on.
the fuck. What is wrong with you right now? What is wrong with you? Get help. Get help. No.
I mean, it's true. His armor
Stop.
is really cool. It's really attractive.
Okay, the armor is cool. I accept that. But like, fuckable?
When he has his armor on, when he takes the armor off, your skin
He
is
looks
disgusting.
like Smeagol.
He does not look
He
like
looks
Smeagol. He
Yes,
has like
does.
an ass. What are you talking about?
Oh my gosh, you're really looking at his ass.
Yeah, dude, I've watched this movie like 10 plus times.
Okay, you know what? We're
He has
moving
really
on.
good thighs too, if you look at him.
Oh, God. Stop. We were talking about how scary he is.
I mean, yeah, scary in like a threatening way.
So the first like battle scene we have with Steppenwolf is like the battle at the Mascara. And holy shit, is it very hot. Ignoring the hot ladies, but the fighting is really cool. I think it's really cool. Steppenwolf's arrival and the way he's fighting with a bunch of like battle Amazons is just so cool.
I know that you didn't watch the Whedon Cut, but in that version, it looks like they're playing tag with Steppenwolf. And so being able to see the two differences, I really appreciate how threatening he is in this version.
And because the battle for the Mascara and the other battle at Atlantis, which we'll cover later, like these are battles that were meant to be lost, which it's really cool because usually we don't have losing battles and multiple ones in a hero movie, usually there's one and then it's like, okay, we have to rise up together now. Let's fight. But this one, like, it was meant to be lost. Like, even though they tried their hardest, like, the Amazons were literally, like, dying as they were galloping away.
You actually see how difficult this fight is and them actually dying. And I really love that they sealed themselves off and sacrificed their life. And then even after that huge sacrifice and the queen is like mourning, Steppenwolf and the parademons still rise up and they have to fight again. Like, I really love that because it's like this was their plan for thousands of years, that this was going to work, that if it was compromised, they would just drown it and the problem would be solved. But their plan, and, you know, the Amazons are evidently, through, you know, the context they give the audience, are warriors who really have thought out plans and know so much about war and fighting that even this plan that they came up with didn't work.
In contrast, I wasn't that impressed with the Battle of Atlantis. It was kind of boring to me, especially after the Themyscira one. Well, I understand that in political situation in Atlantis, there wasn't as much protection as the Amazons had in Themyscira because they have their own, like, political shit that's going on that goes more into depth in the Aquaman movie.
And the parademons were also picking off the soldiers one by one.
Next to Themyscira, Atlantis doesn't weigh as heavily.
Yeah, and it's also a lot less memorable because at the time when Zack Snyder and James Wan were, like, communicating for building the universe, Zack didn't want to overstep and establish any lore for James Wan. He wanted James to have complete authority over Atlantis, which is why it's so in such, like, a secluded area. There's not a lot of, like, architecture or anything, like, really that stands out in the way that, you know, like, it doesn't look the way that the Aquaman solo film looks, basically. The one really fucking cool thing about the battle at Atlantis is when Queen Mera is, like, sucking the blood out of Steppenwolf.
Oh, I know.
That was fucking awesome. Rea, I wanted to hear your thoughts about the scene where Martha and Lois are talking together about their grief, because that's a scene I came into the movie already knowing what was going to happen.
So, first of all, that scene felt very, like, emotional to me because it was just like, we had not seen how their grief interacted with each other before and how they had both lost somebody very important. And the fact that there was a picture of Clark in the background, that they were mourning Clark, not Superman, is just, it hits really differently than anybody else in the film because even Batman is mourning Superman, not Clark. This scene, when I was watching it the first time, I was like, this is such an important scene. And then I remember seeing Martha leave the room. And when it became the Martian Manhunter, I was like, what the fuck? So it wasn't Martha mourning. But I still think it's interesting because we also see a side of mourning that the Martian Manhunter is experiencing and how he's getting more involved.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm conflicted because I appreciate that we are seeing Martian Manhunter be more involved, and we also see his grief with Clark because he did in a way know Clark and Superman. But I don't know, I would have loved it to just be Martha and Lois.
It's one of those things where it's not bad, but also could have been something more if it was Martha.
And I'm also so curious about how that would have played out in the next movies, because I know Zack would not leave that alone. Like, Lois would find out somehow, and I'm just curious how that would play out between those two characters. Alfred and Bruce have this really great conversation. Alfred tells Bruce that he's already fulfilled his promise to Clark by embracing hope and creating a team, because it's definitely not something he would have done before. Alfred says, quote, "Your guilt's overcome your reason. Not all the king's horses, nor all the king's men." And then the end of that nursery rhyme is, "Can put Humpty Dumpty back together again." And it's just, like, talking about his guilt. And oh my god. And then Bruce says in response, "Alfred, for once, I'm operating strictly on faith, not on reason." And you just see so much development from Bruce in this scene, and I just love it so much.
It's a very lucky thing for Batman that he's actually able to find a way to bring back Superman from the dead. And it doesn't end up being just his guilt throughout the film. It's actually something he's able to do.
So, yeah, the resurrection of Superman.
God rise again on the third day, but for Superman, it was the third month.
Funny that you bring up religious references, because Superman's death in Batman vs. Superman, the Ultimate Edition, is at 2 hours, 38 minutes into the movie. And Superman's resurrection in Zack Snyder's Justice League is at 2 hours, 38 minutes into the movie. And 2:38 of Revelations, or whatever, is about Jesus resurrecting Lazarus. The quote is, "Then Peter said unto them, Repent and be baptized, every one of you, in the name of Jesus Christ, for the remission of sins, and ye shall receive the gift of the Holy Ghost." It's basically saying, feel regret and remorse for your sins, for what happened to Superman, and you'll be forgiven by receiving the revival of Superman.
The Lazarus thing in the Bible is used by media so much. Like, even Doctor Who used it.
Really?
Yeah. Don't you remember there's like this episode called like the Lazarus Project? That's a reference to the Bible.
Oh. I just thought it was like a funny little word that people use a lot.
No.
I forgot that it was a reference to the Bible.
No, it's the Bible reference.
Huh.
But yeah.
Not something to think about when I see things.
I thought it was interesting how still in the moments before the resurrection actually happened, there was so much uncertainty between the Justice League that had formed. Like, Arthur was still like denying this and saying like, we shouldn't be doing this. Batman was like, yeah, let's go. This is the only way out of this. Like, we need Superman. And then the Flash is like, do I do it? Do I not do it?
I love that uncertainty, because I feel like in some films, characters are so sure about their decisions. So I like the indecisiveness of this decision.
Yeah. It was good because it fits, like, they don't know actually what's going to happen. It's something that they're taking a leap of faith on. And which is, I really like, because it's really rare for this Superman to have somebody take a leap of faith for him first.
Oh my god, I didn't notice that.
We talked about this in the Man of Steel episode. It's a lot of him giving people trust and expecting or waiting for trust to be given back to him. But this time it was the opposite. They were trusting him, and it took him a moment to go back and trusting them.
One of the things that really stood out for me is Cyborg's nightmare. And from this, we know who dies if Darkseid wins. Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and a Green Lantern named Kilowog. And we see Superman mourning over a body and vulnerable to Darkseid.
And that's how we understand what the epilogue scene means, right?
Yeah, like the nightmare scenes. Yeah, oh, speaking of, I remembered this, because I remember you asked this in BVS. So their visions of the nightmare are side effects from the Flash traveling through time and space. The side effects of that is people being able to see the future. Another part of this scene that I really liked was the fucking, like, Kryptonian ship AI just saying, like, this act is irreversible.
Oh,
and then,
know.
And then after that, after Cyborg's nightmare, it says, the future has taken root in the present. And it just feels like so, I don't know, there's just so much dread in the voice and what
ominous.
They're saying. Yes, ominous. I love it.
I think that scene is just really good at establishing where Zack Snyder was headed. Especially since you told me in the last episode what he was planning on doing. That uncertainty, that fear that things can go wrong, and then knowing that he was actually planning for things to go wrong, is just like, wow. I just wanted to mention one thing about Superman's fight with the Justice League. When he makes eye contact with the Flash when he's moving really fast, that shit's really hot. That was so attractive.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to say. Let it be known.
I
thought that was really attractive.
Annihilated by Superman.
Stop! Yeah. No.
Oh god.
No, but it's like, no. I think it's hot because one, it really like rubs into the point that Superman is really fucking scary. Like really, really scary. But like also that how lucky humanity was that he was on our side.
Another thing that's really awesome is Superman's return, and when he's walking through the Kryptonian ship. What? Did you not like it?
No, I did.
Oh, I thought those were negative humming.
No, they're good. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Superman's suit has its own character arc in a way. So in Man of Steel, the red and blue suit is him discovering and connecting with his Kryptonian heritage. And we also see the black suit in Man of Steel when Zod shows him the destruction of Earth, and the suit is associated with negative emotions towards Krypton and fear because of that scene. And then the suit evolves again in BVS. In the House of L symbol, there is a Joseph Campbell quote written in Kryptonian that says, "Where we had thought to stand alone, we will be with all the world." Snyder had chosen that quote, and the costume designer, Michael Wilkinson, explained that it was a quote that has to do with the idea of alienation or coming together and feeling a part of society. And that was something that Superman is battling during that movie. And in Zack Snyder's Justice League, he chooses the black suit because he accepts that he is part of two worlds and that it is the suit that his father wore, because he no longer feels alienated from being Kryptonian.
Ah. Oh, so it's like the completion of his, like, acceptance of his past.
Yes, yeah.
Oh.
And there's one last evolution of the suit that we see during these three movies, and it is in the nightmare scene, where he does wear the red and blue suit again, and that is Darkseid destroying the symbol of hope and the hope of the resistance.
The traditional red and blue suit has now become something scary because of the prophecies of that future, and it's just really interesting to me, especially since those colors are correlated with America.
Yes, the US, because we are the only country that has red and blue in their flag.
Apparently.
Not like it's a very common colors or anything like that.
It's not like most other countries. Just hearing what you had to say, because I hadn't correlated with that. I forgot that the black suit was actually visible in Man of Steel. And now just seeing it as an evolution of his acceptance, finally comprehending that he's Kryptonian, but he's also human, and it's just really good. It's so subtle that I didn't notice. But knowing it now, it makes me appreciate the black suit even more. Seeing it as this evolution of how he doesn't have to deny his Kryptonian roots in order for him to be a symbol for humanity. I don't know, it's just really good.
They help the audience really connect with that when we see Superman walking around the ship and thinking about what both of his fathers have said to him throughout his life. There are voiceovers of them talking about the expectations for him and advice that each of them has given to him. And it's not him choosing one perspective over the other, but thinking of what they said and forging his own path, which is him accepting he is a son of Krypton and Earth.
That's really good. I really like that. As we're talking about each of the superheroes almost individually, I'm just realizing how similar yet different each of their character arcs are. Because even though they have a lot of the same themes, the writers did really well in not making them so singular that it feels like it's just repetitive. Like, a lot of them have focus on their parents and redemption. Most of them have, like, oh, we're from two worlds, and it's hard for me to, like... Because if you don't think about it too hard, you won't notice it just because their stories feel so different. But once you start, like, thinking about the film and being like, wow, most of their themes and, like, character elements are similar as fuck, but, like, it's just written so well that you don't notice it and you think of them all as their own character. So moving on to the final fight, I'm curious, what is your favorite part out of this?
I love when Superman joins the fight. It's the song is Superman Rising Part 2. I love playing it all the time. It's just, it's like a revamp. I'm not sure if that's the correct musical term, but it's like a revamped version of Flight, which is the Man of Steel theme, and it's just like, it's so new, and there's like these new instruments, and I'm like, oh my god, this is so fucking good. But that aside, Superman himself, when he joins the fight, I am surprised, and I absolutely love that him joining wasn't the climax of the film. And I'm glad that they gave their newer characters more attention and care. And this is really important because the way Superman is written most of the time, he can be very easily overpowered. And it's important to not use him as a cop-out or like an easy answer to solve all of your narrative conflicts. And that is what happened in Whedon's version of the movie. But it's not because of him that they won, it's because of the League altogether. And I really like how it played out in this version. And I love how it's like set up to make you believe that Superman's arrival is leading to the conclusion of this fight, but it's not.
Yeah, I also was gonna mention like just our general knowledge on superheroes and super movies as a society. We know Superman is gonna join the fight at one point or another. And making that the climactic moment of the film would have been like, okay, we knew this was gonna happen. It's not worth putting so much stress on it. It's just one of the things you expected already. So the fact that they didn't make it like the moment, the climactic moment, like we're not just depending on Superman, it's the team as a whole that we're depending on, it's just really good.
Yeah, each member of the team had a part to play in this win. I hate when you have like a team up movie and you don't give each character an important part to play, because then it's like they're just there just to be there.
Ensemble cast stories, there's always like two that end up just being there and not having a purpose really in the film other than comedic timing or just shit like that. But to have actually like purpose in defeating the villain or completing their goal is just really cool.
And I love the decision to decenter Superman, because this movie is so centered around Superman. Like, he feels so present throughout the entire movie, and yet he does not have that much screen time. But like, we see how much he influences the other heroes and their decisions, even though he does not actually directly involved most of the time.
I know. They focused a lot more on Cyborg, which I think was very, very necessary. Because in the end, the main arc I felt was Cyborg's character arc and discovering that he's not a monster and how he's going to develop through that.
I think it's such a bold decision for them to make the League lose. Like, they actually lost this fight.
I appreciate this film a lot because they embrace the act of losing a lot, and it's not seen in a lot of media. Like, mainstream things don't embrace that losing is going to happen and that sometimes what you're fighting for is going to be a fucking struggle. And it's not just going to come as easily as in other movies they make it seem. Like, if you fight with a little effort, it's going to happen. But like, no. There's many moments in this movie where like people are giving it their fucking awe and they are still going to lose. The world is going to fucking end. This is not a situation that we can make a mistake on. And yet mistakes were made.
Yeah, and the path that they chose to give them a second chance at winning was the Speed of Force scene when Barry turns back time.
I thought that was so cool.
I absolutely love it. It's something that he mentions throughout the movie, that he has a rule that he doesn't want to break. But they fucking lost, and it is their last resort. The stakes are so high, and he has the ability to give them a second chance, and they cannot waste it.
You know what's really powerful about that? Knowing he could do that, knowing he could go back in time, and still setting that rule for himself and not being able to like help his father. And it's just like the amount of turmoil that must give him, being like, I could actually change it, but I'm not going to do it because morally it is wrong. And it's just like establishes how hard set his morality is. And even though he's in like an aloof character, like he still has that strict guideline for himself.
Absolutely. One of the best quotes in this movie, when Barry says, "Make your own future, make your own past, it's all right now." Such a good quote.
The writers, kudos to them. They have really powerful lines in this movie.
And you know, another quote that really goes well with this is from Silas. And it's when he says, "The world's not fixed in the past, only the future. The not yet, the now." And it really connects with the theme of second chances and how they're telling the audience to not linger on the mistakes of your past. Don't let your failures hold you down, because you can change that. Which, again, ironically reflects the journey of everyone involved in the making of this movie.
That's true. And tragic. So we see how the Justice League as a whole gets a second chance. But we also have like this individual scene for the Cyborg when he's dealing with the mother boxes. And it deals more with his own character arc, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, Victor overcoming his grief for losing his body and losing a life he once had, and accepting himself. Like, he had to accept himself in order to stop the mother boxes, which is so powerful.
Like, it couldn't have just been done like, oh yes, with your powers, but like, I still hate myself and I'm still a monster. Like, no, he actually had to like face these struggles he's been dealing with throughout the movie, because the mother boxes were using it against him.
And his ability to overcome the struggle is justified throughout the whole movie, because he says, I'm not broken and I'm not alone, which is a great fucking quote. And he realizes that he doesn't have to be alone in this process of grief.
That's so cute. I love the Justice League.
You know, I really appreciate that the League, that they didn't write them to be like family right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
They are still strangers. You know, they have the same goal, but they're still strangers. But over time, they develop a bond. And I feel that a lot of ensemble movies don't know how to handle that, or they're not comfortable with the fact that they are not.
That there's expected discomfort.
Yes.
Because they're strangers, and even though they might get along the first time they meet really well, like, they're still strangers, and there's still going to be moments that are awkward. And you just can't expect people to just, like, move past strangerhood to family.
Yeah, and, like, you know, you see over time how they give little tidbits of their life to each other and how that develops their relationship and their bond. And then also just side little conversations with each other where they laugh and have fun, but not in a way that's too friendly, like overly friendly for people who don't know each other.
I hadn't even thought about how the family dynamics and how it's expected until you mentioned it, because the way they portrayed the characters was so natural. Like, they are strangers. They have just met, like, most of them, like, a few days ago. The deepest knowledge any of them have of each other is Batman and Diana, because they've been working together more. But, like, everybody else, they're still strangers, and you can still see it, and you can see how, since they're working together, they're starting to have, like, inside jokes, but it's not like, oh my gosh, we're BFFs. It's just evolving at a natural pace.
It's something that I noticed because I really love the found family trope, and I'm so very critical about when media advertises itself as found family, and it doesn't really earn the found family label, because you don't really see that progression towards it. You don't see the development of those relationships. It either happens off screen, or they just want the audience to make the assumption that they're family already.
It's because people want to make it seem like their bonds are so natural that they just fit in like puzzle pieces. But I'm like, no, like, even sometimes you have to like force little puzzle pieces together.
Yeah, you actually have to develop a friendship before they become friends.
And I think society has glorified immediate connections that they don't realize that sometimes you still have to work for them.
Absolutely. I mean, going way off track, but media has definitely warped our perception of romantic relationships.
Mm-hmm. The fact that Jared Leto's Joker was in it felt really weird.
Yeah?
Not because he's a bad Joker, but just because I don't like to think that Suicide Squad is in the same universe as this one. So it was weird to see them connected.
I actually like Jared Leto's Joker now. He warmed up to me. I feel like his iteration is accurately obnoxious and terrible, as the Joker actually is.
That's true, I guess. It's just the movie Suicide Squad that might have ruined his chance at being a good Joker. But I do like how they showed him in the film. I think it ended up really cool. I think the addition of the new characters were cool. Like, it's just like sneak peeks to what we could have had, and it's just really cool.
Yeah, breaks my heart. And after the nightmare sequence, Batman wakes up from his dream, and I feel like in this moment we can really see the character development that Batman has from BVS to the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League. Because similarly, in BVS, he wakes up from a nightmare looking troubled. There's like his one night stand in the bed. He has liquor lying around. He starts his day off by drinking pills and drinking alcohol. And in Zack Snyder's Justice League, the same thing happens again. He wakes up from dreaming about the nightmare, but he seems calm and at peace. And also the color grading as well points to this, because in the BVS scene, it's really dark, cool tones, and in this one it's really warm tones and it's sunny. And he doesn't look stressed out. He looks calm and hopeful. And then he goes out and fucking greets an alien he's never met before with no hesitation and no fear.
The character development just in that scene, like the difference between Batman versus Superman, the fear and apprehension he had towards Superman, and all of a sudden he's just like chill, greeting the Martian Manhunter, like being like, hello.
Yeah, so much trust towards him. There's some like controversy as to why Martian Manhunter only appears at the end of this movie. Like, why didn't he join? And I'm curious if you had any thoughts on that.
I was thinking about it. Like, why didn't he? Especially since they had started that scene where it seemed like he was getting more interested in humanity and getting more involved. And you would kind of expect that with that scene, they were building up to, like, him uniting, at least in a small way, but he didn't. And it seemed like he's still very hesitant about it. But it wasn't one of those things, I'm not mad that he didn't join. It's probably something to do with his character arc, and I understand that he probably has his own emotional process of joining in after not being involved.
To me, I understood why he didn't join, because first of all, he is not a white passing alien.
Oh, true.
And he has lived his life on Earth similar to Clark. He knows how skeptical and cynical these people are. And he does not yet trust them. So in Man of Steel, he's introduced to another alien, and he is like silently watching how the world reacts to that. And in BVS, he sees as people tear down Clark. And so I feel like that pushes him more away from revealing his true self. And so finally, in Zack Snyder's Justice League, we get the hint that he's interested in becoming part of our society as his true self. But he only revealed himself at the end because seeing the League fight together, united, it tells him that he can finally safely and comfortably reveal himself to these people and to the world.
Mm-hmm. It makes sense like that.
Also, Martian Manhunter, their weakness is fire, and fire has a big role in a lot of these movies.
Makes sense then.
Originally, this was supposed to be a Green Lantern scene. So, the only Martian Manhunter cameo was the Martha scene. Zack shot the Green Lantern scene at his home, like in his backyard or whatever, and he put it in the movie, but Warner Brothers told him he couldn't do that because they have their own plans. Connecting back to Jeff Johns wanting to be in control, he is the executive producer for the HBO Max Green Lantern show.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
In the original scene, it was going to be Jon Stewart and Kilowog, who we also see dead in the Nightmare sequence. It was going to be them introducing the Lanterns as a group of people who would be involved in the League.
But instead, the only Green Lantern scene was in the history lesson part, right?
So there's another there's another epilogue scene, and it's the one with Lex and Deathstroke.
Oh yeah. Of course you're giggling.
Deathstroke looks really good. Like, okay, let me say Deathstroke is a very bad person, and he is not redeemable, but the costume design, the hair and makeup, and the actor, it looks so good. I am so happy with what they brought to the table.
You're so funny.
Oh my god, I'm so excited. And I mean, it was setting up to a thing between Deathstroke and Batman, because Lex is giving him Batman's identity, which would have Batfleck was going to direct, produce, write, and star in the Batfleck solo film, and made an announcement that Matt Reeves was going to co-direct, which is very ironic. And then Ben Affleck stepped down from his role as Batman because, just like Zack Snyder, he was experiencing a lot of resistance and negativity from Warner Brothers, so he stepped down because of that, and for his health, and because he was having a lot of family issues and marriage issues. And then Matt Reeves stayed on as director and decided to take a film into a different direction with its own universe with Robert Pattinson as Batman. It's very sad to think about because I really would have loved to see Deathstroke and Batman fight it out. And it was also gonna introduce Batgirl into the universe, but it would have introduced Batgirl, and then I assume she would have been Oracle for Birds of Prey. And yeah, I'm so sad.
Didn't realize how much we lost.
We lost a lot. And speaking of things that we've lost, there are currently no plans for Justice League 2. They don't want to continue this universe. They've made public statements about this. Warner Brothers wants to reboot it, even though rebooting the universe was part of Zack Snyder's plan to begin with. I think what Warner Brothers' intention really is that they do not want to be held accountable for the mess that Justice League was, and they also want to avoid the legal case with Ray Fisher.
Fuckers.
I think that makes sense. And it's a bummer because hashtag Restore the Snyderverse, which is the current campaign, within like 24 hours, that tag was trending on Twitter with over 1 million tweets.
Wow.
Yeah. We were trying to make it to 2 million, but I think we only got to like 1.5. It's sad that there's such a demand for it, and yet Warner Brothers don't want to own up to their mistakes and fucking apologize to Ray Fisher and everyone. But I'm happy with Zack Snyder's Justice League. What are your thoughts on this movie overall, Rea?
I really like it. I think everybody who saw the first Justice League movie, obviously, and was disappointed and was blaming it all on Zack should watch this one instead. And even if you didn't watch it, it's a really good film overall, writing-wise. Just a bunch of good shit, honestly. It's just long. It is really long, and I understand that people don't like long movies. I don't personally like long movies, but you could pace it out. There's parts in the film, and you could stop at part 1, and let's watch part 2 later, and then part 3, which is what I did.
Yeah, I definitely agree. If you need to take breaks during this movie, you should take breaks, because this is a movie you definitely want to be paying attention to. I mean, obviously, I'm going to recommend this to everybody, but it's more than just a superhero movie, in that it appeals to more than just people who are interested in comic book movies, which is why I think it should be recommended to everybody. So before we do a closing, Rea, do you have a segment that you want to start?
Finally, you remind me actually in the moment and not after we stop filming.
Well, it's actually self-motivated. Like, I have a...
Oh, fuck you.
I don't want to continue the bit anymore. Fuck it. I have something to promote.
So I've been wanting to start a segment at the end of every episode where we talk about media we're consuming and that we're enjoying that doesn't necessarily have to be speculative fiction, but we just want to talk about it. Just a short little tidbit. And obviously, Elia has something to say, but I'm going to interrupt them and I'm going to talk about something I'm consuming first. I watched Devilman Crybaby finally, and I am so glad I did. That was so good. Like, it's really sad, and there's lots of, like, graphic things that may make some viewers uncomfortable, but, like, the ending, holy shit, the ending is still, like, makes me teary, and, like, I love it so much.
Yeah, Devilman Crybaby is my favorite anime, and...
Love doesn't exist.
And, yeah, I definitely recommend you check out the trigger warnings before watching this.
I just want to say that when I was watching the last episode, Elia came into my room just to watch me cry. And then our other housemate was also in the room randomly trying to pet my dog, and I was just crying in front of them both. And it was just...
Yeah, and we both had already watched Devilman Crybaby. It's my favorite thing to do. I love recommending it to people and then watching them cry.
Elia, your turn.
You didn't even Okay, never mind.
Oh, wait. What didn't I do?
Nothing.
What didn't I do?
You didn't even say what Devilman Crybaby is about.
Oh! I just said what I felt about it. So basically, it's about two young men who were friends from a young age. And one of them is studying demons. And in his study of demons, he turns his friend into a demon. And it's the struggle of the one who was turned into a demon, dealing with his humanity, and the fact that he is a demon. So he calls himself a devil man. And he just cries a lot. And he struggles with humanity. And he sees the good in everything. And he's trying really hard. And his friend is an asshole who doesn't see the good in humanity.
My thing is Ted Lasso, which is literally the only Apple TV series that has gotten any sort of critical attention. I know that The Morning Show got some attention like in award season, but honestly I think it just got attention because it has a bunch of famous actors in it. But Ted Lasso is so fucking great. I absolutely love this show. Ted Lasso is about a small-time American football coach who is hired to coach a professional football team in England, despite not having experience coaching football, and emphasis on American football and then football in England. And it's such a wholesome show that really understands human emotions and how to develop relationships with humans, because I feel like they really understand human emotions. And a really huge theme of Ted Lasso is accountability, and we explore through multiple characters them struggling to see their mistakes, admit their mistakes, and then owning up to it and apologizing to people. And I really love watching that development through these characters. And like the whole thing about Ted Lasso is he loves to create a nurturing, happy environment, and watching these people who are so disconnected from each other feel a bond with each other because Ted Lasso sees the value in human connection, no matter how small it is. And just watching these people root for each other because they are in a nurturing environment is just, it makes me really happy, especially in a time where I feel so deprived of human connection. It's really comforting to have right now.
You're deprived of human connection? I'll go upstairs right now and bother you, don't worry.
No, you don't understand. You don't understand Ted Lasso.
I'm coming.
You don't understand Ted Lasso.
I'm coming. We'll record together right now. Just give me a second.
You know when you're in a classroom with a teacher who nurtures your development and learning and validates you, but think of that as like an actual environment where everyone does that with each other because they care about each other, but not necessarily in like a deep bond way, but just like in a human way, like they're actually kind people. It's so fucking nice to pretend I'm in a world where people aren't cynical bitches like Batman. Because I am 500% Batman, and I just wish I could live in an environment, I wish I could be in an environment with people like this, because it's just so sad how negative our society is. Anyways.
Thank you for listening to Labyrinth of the Bizarre. You can listen to Labyrinth anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can watch Zack Snyder's Justice League on HBO, but you could also watch Devilman Crybaby on Netflix, and you could watch Ted Lasso on Apple TV+. You could send us listener mail at goldenlyres@gmail.com, and that's golden, LYRES, @gmail.com. Or you could talk to us on our Twitter at Labyrinth Pod. Follow us on there for updates and behind-the-scenes content, and we've been posting a lot of Pokemon unboxing, so go watch that. Show your support for our podcast by rating us on Apple Podcasts and letting people know about us on social media and sharing with your friends. Labyrinth of the Bizarre recognizes that we live and work on stolen land. Elia and Rea record in California, specifically in the territories of the Ramaytush peoples. Thank you so much for listening to Labyrinth of the Bizarre. Until next time, cue music, lights, off.
Cut? You could have said cut.
Cut.
Okay, bye.